All right, here we go.
Here we go. So,
Here we go. So,
Meredith, how are you?
Aaron,
How are
how are
you
you
doing?
doing?
We're both in
Same.
sync. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'll go first, I guess then. Yeah, so things are good. I'm just traveling. It's been a month now that we've been on the road with no home base, and just over a month now. And I'm in Minneapolis, the land of the cold and snow. So I'm
How's
looking,
that going?
I grew up 3 hours from here, so I'm used to cold and snow.
Mhm.
And I remember a few weeks ago when I was heading up here, I was on the phone with you and I was like, I do pretty good with cold, right? Because we were in Sweden and Denmark.
Yeah.
Well, not this level of cold. So I'm like
Ugh,
realizing like the level of cold that like I was very humbled. I was like, fuck, not this level of cold, like literally below zero. Like, I mean, it was like with the wind chill, because
terrible.
that's the thing. Like, people don't, when they're not from the Midwest or say Canada or cold, like Scandinavian countries, like there's two temperatures, right? There is your actual temperature, and then there's the wind chill. And the wind chill is actually more accurate, right? Because in the plains, when it's kind of flat land too, you have a
Mhm.
lot of wind, which affects the temperature, right? So like a lot of the days that we've been up here have been, I mean, well, I should say a lot, like probably about 4 days. It was like in the negative 20s and it got into the negative, like negative 34. Yeah.
Ew, God. That's like the kind of cold that it feels like your fingers are going to freeze off as soon as you go outside and your
100%. And your
toes
cheeks and your
and
toe,
your
any
cheeks.
kind of extremity. And like, even when you have pants on, like the other day I was walking in the morning, because the dog that I'm caring for, and my legs, like, didn't matter, like the pants I had on too. It's like you need, like, if you're going to be out for
Long
any length of time.
johns and yep.
Yeah. And so it really takes a preparation that most people really aren't like, unless they grew up here or have lived here, in an area like this for a while. It's just, it's normal for people who live here. And I guess the benefit of it that it is the area here knows how to deal with it. Right.
Right.
They're very, very like equipped to handle the cold and handle these things. People know what to do. In Minneapolis, I don't know if you're familiar with this, or people listening, but they in the entire world, there's like it's a skyway system they have so that you don't even have to go outside. If you're in the
Wow.
downtown area, and it's like 10 or 11 miles of
And you
skyway,
can
which
just
is the
walk
biggest in the world.
in like in the sort of like in between the buildings kind of
Mhm.
thing.
Yep. And
That's
so
great.
it's above the streets and whatnot, so that you can like, so the parking garage that we're in too, like that's what we've been doing, is like going in the skyway and going over, so you walk across and then go down. And it takes a little longer to get to places because it's not a direct shot, right? If you're walking on the street, but it's a nice way to get around and get out of your place if you're in the downtown area, right? Like, or working downtown, if it's just too damn cold to like get outside, because it's just not comfortable, so I've
Right.
learned a lot about myself. I can handle things that are like say above 30. Anything above 30, I'm good. I'm really like, I'm good. Like, it's manageable, but anything less than that, it gets a little hairy for me. So it's good to know that.
It has been in the single digits here this week. And
Yeah.
so moving from Charlotte to the mountains in North Carolina is like a huge difference in terms of like the type of cold that it is, how cold it is. And so I remember like when I moved here in 2021, it was very much like very, very, very cold. And there was a lot of snow on the
Mm,
ground. Like a week after I moved here, and everything was, it's still kind of like the South in the sense that people freak out during the snow. And some people are because of the way the mountains are structured, like at higher elevations, and some people are at lower elevations. Some people are deep in hollers or live on ridges, and it's not necessarily as like it's very different,
yeah.
and so I partially, it's been a lot of snow here. In the last couple of weeks, there's been about two big snows, and I'm really enjoying staying indoors, which is kind of like it's not very good for your sun consumption. I like to consume the sun as I think you do
Mm,
too and
yes.
kind of participate in that like energy exchange, but I'm just like a plant, like I lean in the direction of the sun, but I have not been necessarily getting that except for through this window, because yeah, it's just way too cold and,
I hear you.
you know,
It's funny that you say a couple things. Sun too. It's one of the things I realized. It's like I miss the sun. I need the sun. Like it is like a source of life. I haven't it just city life. Like we're right downtown Minneapolis. So it's a
yeah.
whole another like experience, right? Being around, we won't go into that right now, but but then the other thing you said is a different type of cold. And I think that's the thing too. Like people like there's dry cold, there's like wet cold, right? So like what would you say what's the difference between Charlotte and Cherokee?
Wet cold and wetter cold.
So it's a little bit more
It's
humid where
not
you're
very
at.
dry in North Carolina. North Carolina is a very humid place,
Yeah,
but I think that like wetter heat and wetter cold, you can feel it. You can really feel it.
I
That's my
hear you.
opinion.
It like gets to your bones almost, you know? Yeah, I can feel that. Like I think like a Colorado cold is different than you know what I mean? Like a humid type cold, where it's drier and
Colorado
better.
cold is great. I went to a conference in Colorado in 2016 and there was definitely snow on the ground everywhere, but I had no problem being outdoors in the morning and, but yeah, so I know we wanted to talk about a couple of
Yeah,
stuff
do it.
around just around like this new old administration and just some of the things that are coming up in the world that I feel like it's so funny because like in our public lives, kind of like sharing our thoughts and our own private conversations, specifically I think of the private conversations that you and I have had, we've foretold so much of what is about to unfold and has been unfolding. And I just couldn't think of a more perfect person to come on and, discuss some of this stuff with because, we've kind of like been there for each other, understanding each other in times when there haven't been very many people there to understand or validate, what we have been kind
Yeah.
of seeing and we're not the only ones too. I mean, I think a lot of people have been feeling the trending direction of moving toward maybe like the exponential growth of AI and consciousness. So I kind of wonder like I think that some people are just getting the message while other people sort of like, sleepwalk toward something that they do not understand. So,
Yeah.
um, the first thing that I want to say is that I remember having a conversation with you about the MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again, remember?
I
And
think so.
like, I remember having this exchange with you that discussed like sort of how it looks like it's going to be beef tallow being brought back to the McDonald's drive-through and, like fluoride and dye and different stuff being taken out of our food and, glyphosate and, cleaning up the environment in some ways that people who are very focused on the environment are not always aware of or talking about,
Mhm.
Um, but how we were kind of looking at the astrology and talking about Pluto and Aquarius and how there may actually be a completely different healthcare system that comes online that is
Yeah.
AI based, that is personalized, that, and so I feel like a lot of this stuff is no surprise to me. If you look at a lot of science fiction movies, the healthcare in those movies are nanites. They are little nano like robots that are injected and they're programmed to do a certain task. And they usually, I mean, people don't want to hear this from me, I guess, but in those movies and in those scenes, the nanites do cure people and they do help people. we're not really shown like the spiritual repercussions for that. We're not really shown like the cost that that comes with in terms of like what else those nanites are paying attention to in us and feeding into and depleting and so I think that but it's shown in movies that a lot of those nanite injections actually end up really curing what they are intended to cure. So I just am really interested to talk about this with you because it's like I saw the duping of the Maha movement from its inception, and it really was only incepted in what, like June, July of last year?
Yeah, or even later. I don't even remember, but it's been pretty recent for
Yeah.
sure.
What are
Yeah.
your thoughts? Let's discuss.
Yeah, no, this is so good because I've been sitting with this all and like as a 6'2", right? Like as the
Mm,
perspective from a 6'2" that we both are, right? Like it's kind of like, okay, what's the broader here, like vision of this? Like where is I'm really careful to be like all or nothing, right? Like that's why I won't pick sides. That's why I don't vote. That's why I don't like, you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
it's like, no, like I don't there's so much at stake and that it's not just one or the other, right? With anything, right? It's like, so this
Yeah.
health thing, right? This health thing, like, I think that what I think is the bigger picture that I actually came to this morning when I woke up. I was like journaling and I was like, what is the actual like root and source of what is happening right now? And what I came to was like, this is nothing new. None of this
Yeah.
is new. This is literally the age old for millennia human dilemma. And I'll explain that what I mean by that. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, this is not about Trump. This is not about RFK. This is not about Elon. This is not about who's in charge at all, at all. This is
Mhm.
about literally wherever we're at, we've been at in history. Humanity's been given what we want. And when we own that shit, we want this. There
Yeah.
is a level of us as human beings or as people here that actually want this because it's our need of afraid to be in the unknown. Because if you think about this whole AI, this Stargate, this AI system that we're like, that is going to be created, I mean, let's
It's
just
the
admit it.
abyss.
It's just, but it's like, it's going to be the all knowing. It's like recreating God, right? But
Right.
what it is doing is like when we understand that, like, we're made in the image of God, which is, in my belief, under the light of the sun, right? The sun is the sun. And God, like, it's like, oh, okay. So now we are again, because if you go through, let me just go through history. So if we go through history, like ancient civilizations, right? They gave away their power to gods and goddesses. They made statues outside of themselves to represent all of these things. So instead of understanding their own rhythm and their own maybe nature, they
Mhm.
explain nature by like, oh, we must do something to please the gods. The floods, the everything else is the cause of something external, right?
Hmm.
And so they
That's
put,
not dissimilar to things that we've heard recently about, Helene here or like the fires in LA. And I really don't
so I'm going to pause you for a minute because
go for
I
it.
was on a thread and I want to finish this out because there's all like this whole tie into right now. So
Mhm.
from ancient civilizations to this to even when we went to kings and queens, right? We wanted someone
Mhm.
to rule us because we are like, we feel that we are so like unable to rule ourselves
Mhm.
from the macro to the micro. Can't even make
Mhm.
decisions on our own if you think about it. How many
Right.
people ask for advice because it's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to rule myself and take responsibility for me and the power that I have within me, right? So we want somebody external. So we're giving that
Mm.
away because we want security. Somebody tell me what to do. Somebody make the laws so that I feel secure, so that I feel safe, so that I don't have to own my own decisions. And it helps me feel safe, like this world is a controllable world. And the reality of it is we're not. So we're literally fighting against that internally, right? So this is
Right.
just what I came to this morning. So then it's like, then it went from kings and queens, right, to like, to what we can go into the industrial revolution, right? Like, so now we wanted to make machines and things like that, right? To
Yeah.
help us. But what happened is we became dependent on those machines. They were no longer a tool to advance us. They were something we depended on because we can't do it then ourselves. So I think we have to make the distinction. Well, and here's the thing, as we move forward, even from there, like, I mean, we've been setting up governments, we've been setting up systems, let's just say systems, whether it's whatever it is, to create a sense of um safety, to create a sense of knowing, to create a sense of um yeah, safety and knowing.
Mhm.
And at the but then we sacrifice our own internal power because we don't even know how powerful we actually are internally. And
Yeah.
this goes to even this we can industrial revolution, technological revolution to now we're in this AI like revolution, whatever. I don't know what they're calling it, but like, but
Right.
right. And so basically, because what it is what they're the promise, right? There's always a promise is we'll be able to like basically know where like exactly what disease you have and be able to give you a vaccination or a medicine that is exactly for you based on so before you even know it's there so that you can live longer, you can be healthier, all these things. When it's like, well, wait a second, could we potentially could that be mirroring what we actually already have within us, but we've never been
Right.
taught that we have that shit within ourselves and that power? It kind of goes back to the Dorothy story, right? Like you've always had the power, my dear, right?
Ooh, yes.
Right. And so I feel like it's no different. I don't think this is any different. It's just a different tale that we're telling, but it's the same story, age old, like help me make this safer for me so that I don't have to take responsibility for my health, for my decisions, for my wealth, for my parenting, for my life. Does that make
Hmm.
sense? So that's what came to me
Totally.
today. I was like, oh God,
That's good.
shit. Like this is what it is. It has nothing to do with the extra because we're giving away. So I wrote down when you were talking a bit ago, I was like, what do we possibly have to give up within us or sacrifice within us? Right? Like you were saying with these antibiotics to heal.
It
What are we
is going
giving
to be
up?
an exchange. It's not just going to be like a one-way street. Like we get the nanites and then we're healed and then, you know, and then suddenly,
Yes.
and then there's no like energetic or emotional repercussions. And so I want to get into a little bit of that if I might, like
Hmm.
how so and I just want to say that I have this cat who is very sweet but doesn't is not accustomed to me doing this, I think. And so keeps like clawing at my
It's all good.
leg, like, hey, what are you doing? And why am I not included in this, you know? And so I just keep kind of getting a little bit distracted because of that. So I'm gonna try to
All
like
good.
really and
You're
I
good.
think that me picking him up just now kind of like chilled
Cool.
that out. So
Awesome.
I just want to go over too, like, so there's the impulse of like what makes us so amenable to give our power away to whether it's like kingships and rulers, to presidents, to
Gods.
governments,
Mhm.
to AI, whatever it is, right? Kind of like that, like long, like sort of like that, like history that you gave over a long period of time. It's also I think that there is an elite sort of like ruling class that very much benefits from us being in that space of like powerlessness and whatever it is, like, the like kind of ignorant or unaware of the greater picture. So I want to get into their impulse too. I feel that with these nanites and frankly with metals, different heavy metals, aluminum, barium, strontium, things that are already pretty much like already inside of us, in my view. The reason I feel that they want to kind of like have all of these metals in us, these nanites, aluminum, like just different intelligent metals, is because that creates like a connection between our body and these different external devices, be them computers, phones. sensors, whatever it is,
Internet of bodies.
the internet of bodies. Yeah. So this is where, like, what I find is that there's like the very surface level truther that is like probably super thrilled about this new administration coming into power. And maybe they aren't necessarily as educated as I would like them to be on things like biodigital convergence, because we have to understand, I think, in order to fully give consent and fully say, like, yes, I want this, we have to understand it, like we have to really understand and grasp like what that mechanism is that makes you think of something like, when in 2018, I thought for a brief split second, I would like to go get my master's in social work. And I didn't tell anybody for like a week. That whole week, I was seeing ads for MSW of different programs and that I might like. And, that's really how like this sort of like, you know, this surveillance capitalism, if you will, works is and just being able to very much like predict and suggest human behavior.
Yep.
And you really mentioned that like we don't know ourselves very well inside and out. We don't, a lot of people, are too busy, trying to make ends meet, frankly, and are like running the race of survival, which who can blame them? Not me, not me.
Yep.
Like
Totally.
a lot of people are too busy to fully understand their own kind of like their own weaknesses, their own shadows, and their own like kind of the things that make them susceptible to being led or to being steered.
Their own fears. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and so I kind of feel like that, you know, these Peter Thiel's, Larry Ellison's, of the world, Bill Gates, frankly, they are also trying to, in my belief anyway, harness something that is in us that they don't necessarily have. There are parasites in this world and there are hosts, right?
Right.
So the host has something that the parasite wants. And I think that when we get into the connection with the sun and the connection with divinity, and the fact that, there's a lot of different like manifestational abilities that humans have that we have no idea how it works. And some of us are just beginning to grasp in any way, like, how that goes, right? It's like we have to understand that there's a reason that they want to sort of corral our choices and behaviors. And, they kind of view us in a way as like children or like toddlers, where like if you want to like give a toddler a choice, you give it two things that you want it to do,
Oh
and
yeah.
you just
I
take
did
the
that to
other
my
choices
kids.
away
You got to wear a
off the
shirt.
table.
You have to wear a shirt. Do you want to
Right.
wear the green one or the blue one? That's exactly
Exactly.
what you're
And it's
saying.
like,
Yeah.
I just want to go topless. Okay. Like, I don't want to wear a shirt, but it's like those
Yep.
people, it kind of reminds me of like the movie Divergent,
Mhm.
where, there are like these five different factions that humanity gets like sorted into. And if you have within you like all five of those factions in different amounts and those different traits, you're labeled as divergent. Well, what if I want to wear a purple shirt? Or what if I don't want to wear a shirt? What if I want to wear a tank top? What if I want to wear just my bra? Like, I don't know. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why am I limited to these choices, right? Like those types of like those people who think about those things are like the real ones. As I think I heard Danny Katz say this recently on a podcast that that they want the essence of the real ones and the people who think differently or a little bit outside of the box and aren't as steerable.
Yeah.
And I think also there's just, yeah, there's energy that they're trying to harness that, so I think it's just important to examine like why we want this, why some of this population at a conscious level wants this, why they want this, and just kind of looking at like, you know, there's there's a deeper level of control and suggestion within an AI world, even if that AI world, there's no cancer, there's no sickness, right? A lot of the COVID shots and, because we're supposed to be under the auspices of free speech now, so I'm going to give this a whirl, right?
Yeah, we'll see.
Is like, in my opinion, the COVID shots were a trial run to see how much mRNA we can get into people and see how people interact with it. And some people, it's too caustic for their bodies. So, some people are perishing from it or not dealing with it well. And we're seeing a lot of side effects. But I believe that mRNA is programmable in real time. So they're able to see in real time in physiological health data, like how this is affecting everybody and what's going on. And, you know, Elon Musk himself said you can program mRNA to turn somebody into a butterfly. So that should just give you the indication that they could program it to make everyone well tomorrow if they wanted to, but they don't want to. So, I believe that now it gets perfected. RFK Jr. himself is heavily invested into the field of vaccinomics, which is like the intersection of medical technology and finance. This personalized vaccine quest has been a long time in the making. And thank you for your patience with me in delivering all of that. I just wanted to share. So those are my thoughts, and I love you. So yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, yeah, all of that is, it's like, and I go back to also too, like when, the topic of, because I'm a big one of like knowing ourselves, right? Like when you were saying most people don't know themselves, like they don't know. It's like, yeah, because like most people were grown up, not like, again, like with these programmed choices, right? That you're talking about, that now we get used to those and we just think that that's life, right? And then
Yeah.
you get every once in a while the kid that like doesn't want to go along with that, and then they're labeled the rebel, or they're labeled the black sheep, or they're labeled the, which I'm sure whoever's listening to this is probably in that category as well too, to be like,
Conspiracy theorist.
that was me, that's me, right? And I can absolutely relate to that as well too. And I think that for me, my trajectory was, I from a young age, I wanted to be myself, but I was told that it was rebellious. I was told that it was a rebellious act. Therefore, as I got older, I learned to not trust authority. And so I just was reactionary. And so I was like, F you to any kind of authority, any authority, because it was just reactionary. I was like, I don't trust authority because I feel controlled by authority. So any type of authority, I'm going to say F you and like whatever. What I realized is like more of like, I'm actually just hurting myself, like with a big old like middle finger to the world, because it was still not acting from me. Right. So I think that if we can help humanity, right? Like rather than again continuing to give away our power, because you're saying they're harnessing something. Yeah, it's our own soul's energy, it's our essence that makes us connected to spirit, to God, whatever we want to call it, like that thing, that spark that's within us, right? That it's like if we can sacrifice that, if we can give that up for the safety of longevity, for the safety of health. Well, what kind of health, right? Like we're just talking. There's so many levels of health, right? There's spiritual, there's mental, there's emotional. There's so many things you can't compartmentalize, right? Just health, like going back to the Maha thing too. It's like, well, what does that mean, right? For these people, so it's like, yeah, when they can harvest that from us, because it's easy for most people. They don't know. They don't know that they're coming from a place of, so here's the thing, the choice that we can make choices from when we're making a choice like this, we're making a choice based on, I don't have what it takes within me, so I need that thing out there to help me, right? Versus, oh no, I am fully equipped and fully fucking empowered within myself, but there's a tool out there that's going to maybe help me even expand more. Does that make sense? So there's a difference of energy that we're moving from. And I feel like for me anyway, how I'm looking at this now, it's like, how can how can I focus on me being so aligned and cleaning up my own fears of whatever, wherever I'm giving away my own power, my own essence, and my own connection to source, right? Which is really what I believe that they're harvesting, like I was, and help other people tune into that as well too. Because I believe that the more people that can do that, the less we're not going to have to worry about whatever it is fine and do whatever, but like if if we are everything pushed out is us, then we have to own this shit too for ourselves on an individual and collective, which I believe is this polarity between Leo and Aquarius, right? Pluto and Aquarius to Leo. It's like, oh, where do I hold this stuff? And where is the collective holding this as well too? And how can we work together so that we can each individually clean this up so that we can help the collective as well too and humanity? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, I kind of like have so I went on a big sort of like Neville Goddard rabbit hole in 2023. And one of the things that like as I've kind of progressed in that, like I still employ some of those practices that he taught and have such a great deal of respect for, he sort of taught me how to take ownership over like my own subconscious and, gives you tools to really rewrite some of that. However, he really simplifies it in a way that's like, your wonderful human imagination is God. And I do believe that our wonderful human imagination is connected to God and, you know, sort of like, but I don't think that he was like bang on with how simple he made it sound in the way of like, we have past lives, say, with like the rise and fall of civilizations, and we have historically, humanity has always chosen to give its power away to some savior.
Yes.
I do believe that it's in our soul's record that we've seen this type of technology before. Like
Mhm.
we've, kind of come into contact with even this very intelligent liquidy metal that it seems like we're being, presented with now. I feel like we've seen this before. We've interacted with this before. This type of technology has connections and is contracted in some ways with us as a whole. So these things are in our subconscious and they do. So, to what degree are we consciously manifesting everything that happens to us? And what degree do we not understand the mechanism by which that occurs? Again, because if we have past life experiences that we don't remember, they're like sitting. Have you seen that meme where there's like the iceberg and all you can see is the tip of the iceberg? And then there's so much else going on.
Yeah.
If we have,
Subconscious. Yeah.
yes, if we have experiences in our past lives, in our Akashic records with this type of technology, the changes that we're about to make as a species, if we have connection to this, then, we should understand that we are manifesting this in a sense, and we have chosen this at a level in a sense too. I think that, and then now I think it's just up to us to choose how we want to interact with it and also to come up with our own like no's and our own boundaries of like, for me, I know that there's some degree of this that is unavoidable, meaning I drink this water, I breathe this air, like I'm in this body. And, by virtue of that, I have become like sort of a hub of connectivity for this technology in a way. I mean,
Yeah.
but I personally have decided that I would never take in you know, an augmented limb, for example, like a technological limb, like a cybernetic sort of
Yeah.
component to my body. I will never. merge with it. And I have come to a level of acceptance for what that means for me and
Yeah.
like my options, my choices, my trajectory.
Yep.
And I had the foresight, which I'm so grateful. And I'm just taking a second to really like pat myself and you on the back because we have had the foresight to really wrestle with some of these philosophical concepts to where when we're faced with that choice, which may be in the heat of some type of global crisis or whatever, you know, we are like pretty firm and resolute in what we choose because we've already chosen it, And so to me, like,
Yeah.
but also not living my life as if living my life from the perspective of it's easy, it's breezy, and I'm still kind of like adding to my own personal repertoire of skills by becoming a massage therapist, and I'm still putting myself out there in the world and feel that there is a level of fearlessness that comes along with that too. And, so I kind of think about it's such a razor's edge to walk of like not dipping your toe so deeply into the what ifs and the fear
Yep.
because there is a ghost in the shell. There is a component of technology that feels like it wants to absolutely possess me, and I feel that, I kind of like look at that and I observe that. And, I wanted to ask you a question too, and I'll give you the floor to respond and stuff, but I wanted to ask you if you could define, as a human design expert, in my opinion at least, what it means to be a 6-2 because we did
Mhm.
introduce that at the beginning, and I just wanted to share because Aaron and I in human design, which is a system created by Ra Uru, who are both our number profiles are both 6-2, and I just want to go over what that means just because
Yeah,
some
for
people may
sure.
not know.
Yeah, for sure. So, let me just respond. I feel like I need to respond first before I get into that, or else I'm going to lose it because I'm in the
Yeah,
moment of it. So
do
let
it,
me
do it.
just take 2 minutes to respond to what you're saying. Yeah,
It's clear to me that we have like a lot to talk about in this medium too,
yeah.
that is not going to be like condensed into an hour,
Oh no, well,
So,
because we don't really know, right? You know what I mean? What everything is how it's playing out. We can have an idea based on the past, right? Like what
mhm,
could happen based on the choices we make, right? That's just kind of like, we could predict that probably fairly accurately, I would say, for the most part. But like, I feel like
right.
you touched on something that was really good as far as it comes down to choice, right? And we have to feel though that I think sometimes, at least for myself, I take for granted the work that I do within myself, where most people don't do that, right? They don't
Mhm,
feel that they really truly do have a choice.
right.
And so they must go along with what it is, or they're making a quote unquote choice out of lack, right? They're making a choice, and which is really just unconscious, right? It's fear because if you're in fear, you're not conscious. You know what I mean? You're making a
Hmm.
decision based on like, you're in fear, you're like, oh my God, I don't want this to happen. Please stop this. I can't be with this fear. So just make it stop. I'm going to make this choice to make it stop, which is maybe sometime, could be something and it's going to have consequences, right? Just like
Right.
the jobs that were, I mean, a lot of people made that out of fear. I don't want to die and so I must go get this, right? Or I don't want to lose my job. So I can't sit with that though feeling. So I have to like release it and go get it done so that I don't have to face my fears. They want a remedy for their fears, right? So what like you touched on something that was like a conscious choice. And I think it comes down to like you were saying, like when we understand that we've been all faced with this before to some degree, it's like, what do we want then? Like, what do we value? Like, if we are solid in our values, like my values, like I can know now, like my choices are aligned with my values. And so it's pretty clear the choices I'm going to make because I know what's important to me. I know what's
Right.
priority for me. And they're going to change and they're going to evolve and move as I'm evolving and growing and moving, but then I reassess those things. Most people don't do that. And I'm not trying to make a dig or trying to like prop myself up. It's just the reality of it. You know what I mean? Like the people I work with and stuff too. It's like they don't know. They don't know. because most people are
Yeah.
never asked, right? Like when you think about it, like right, like when you were a kid, you weren't, again, going back to that t-shirt thing or but whatever, it's like what, like, well, what do you want? You know, it's like, oh no, you have to do it this within this way, and here's your choices within
Right.
this framework. Not like, oh, you could do anything you wanted, what would you want? People are like, I don't fucking know. They get blown away by that because they're like, I don't know if that's even possible. And I think that
Mhm.
that's like, anyway, so that's where I want to respond. So now the 6-2 is in my experience with the 6-2, it's um it's there's profiles from 1-3 to some people are 5-1, 1-3, 2-4, 4-6, 6-2, three
So
six,
there's like a
five
number on
one.
the top and then there's like a number on the bottom.
Yep. So there's two numbers, and so if people want to look at their human design chart, if you have a higher number of 4, 5, 6, well, not always a 4, but if you have a higher number on the top, the first number, if it's higher than the second number, um, you are meant to basically kind of clean up karma in this lifetime. You're here to be a teacher. You're here to be a voice, really, in a
Leader.
sense. Yeah, you're here to have this kind of existential, or not existential, but like external, I guess, like kind of experience with life. And so I'll just speak from that lens because we're talking about 6-2, which is that. So the 6-2 is a role model hermit. So it is the highest of the, and not in a, it's, this is better than any other profile, but it's like the 6 is at the
The highest
highest.
number.
It's the highest number in the numbers, in the line numbers and in the profiles. So basically what it means is that we, in a nutshell, are here to be the role models of our cross. So basically it's like we're the teachers, but in a different way. The 5-1 is really like the teacher. Like they're here to be the teacher. We're here to be the teacher through our actions, through
The
the
demonstrator.
living experience of that, right? So we can't speak about something that we haven't lived.
Right.
And I think most 6-2s would, like, if they're feeling some sort of like, oh, I can't do this. Like it feels off. Like it just feels unaligned. It feels like kind of like what I want to say, when you feel like,
Oh, like imposter syndrome a little
thank you.
bit.
That's it. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of. So it can feel like that because it's like we have to experience it. And for much of our lives, if we if you as a 6-2 and other people listening are a 6-2 or know a 6-2, they've had extreme experiences in their life. Like
Yeah.
for instance, like ex- I mean, and a lot of times too, the 6s can have a lot of sexual trauma as well, past sexual trauma. But I don't want to get into that right now, but that's a characteristic of a 6 line.
Hmm.
But but basically, like, we have to experience these things to the extreme so that we can be the role model, and on both sides. Like I've been in religion severe, like I couldn't just, the 6 is like, oh, I can't just sit and observe. I have to go in it. We have to jump in the deep end, right? Like I couldn't just go to church back in the days. I had to be on staff at church. I had to be in it. I couldn't just like look in and study Judaism a little bit. No, I had to go in and work with a rabbi actually in Jerusalem and like actually go to Orthodox communities to live it, to be in it, and then to come out of it. And then it's like politics, right? I couldn't just like be a Democrat when I was 20. I had to work for the Democratic National Party and go
Yeah.
canvassing. And that's what I did. I couldn't just be a conservative. No, I had to actually get in the whole like Glenn Beck world and that kind of stuff back when oh yeah, I mean, this is just my life,
No,
back
sure,
when I
sure.
was like,
You
I
have
don't
to
know,
immerse
30,
yourself.
35. We have to immerse ourselves so that when now we come around full circle, the whole idea is to come back to ourselves with this now new foundation of like, oh, I've been there. And now I don't have any judgment around it because I've had to live it. And so now I understand now why people are going through that. And now can I see it from a higher vantage point, and I can see all angles rather than getting stuck into one lane, if that makes sense. And then pointing at other lanes going, you're wrong, you're bad, or whatever. So we have to live all those lanes so that we can come back and go, yeah, I understand that. I understand that point of view. And then we live who we are in oftentimes a very unique way because we're not meant to fit in, because we're meant to be
Mhm.
the role model of whatever our cross, the medicine of our cross is.
So there's like an embodiment component is like kind of what I hear you saying with like
100%.
with
Six
the
two has to
six
embody it.
two. And
Hmm.
I want to respond to a couple of your responses to my responses.
Yeah.
And so I just want to share that when you were talking about choices, and sometimes like, we're faced with choices that, lead us into losing our jobs or not being accepted by the group or like whatever, a lot of those decisions that were really driving the um, people to maybe go against what they wanted to do, when it came to the COVID shot and stuff. Like I think of the fact that just in the last week, and obviously, well, I think it's obvious, I'm not like a super Trumper person, and I feel that there's a huge like Trojan horse being wheeled behind all of these sort of like things that seem like minor wins, I guess you could say. So that's my perspective on this administration. You know, and within that, one of those minor wins is the people who are like federal employees and military that ended up taking the shot are reinstated and have or that ended up getting they left their jobs because they refused the shot, so they were like let go
The
or
back pay and
discharged
everything.
from the
Hmm.
military. They're getting back pay now and
Yep.
they are reinstated to their positions if they want to be.
Mhm.
I think that that shows that if you make an empowered choice, even if you have to suffer for a few years, or even if there is a little bit of a longer way round or like a journey with it, that ultimately universal law just kind of seems to indicate to me, based on like my life experience and stuff, that the nature and the universe rewards courage and being brave, and so. I wanted to say that too. And then yeah, like the whole 6-2 thing is it's interesting because Erin and I have both very different human design charts. Like Erin is a manifesting generator with a emotional authority and I am a mental projector, which is just like an alien and like nobody knows like what that really is, but it's like but still within that, I've talked to you over many years now of like, oh, like this is my current experiment. I'm completely reprogramming my subconscious like I did at the in the last 6 months of 2023,
Yep.
or I am like, experimenting with this whole new way of eating, like in your case with some of the Courtney Hunt material and like learning from her. She's a wonderful doctor who has a lot of really good insight if anybody is curious.
Yep. On
And that kind
Instagram.
of like built up and like changed your perspective, it changed your body.
100%.
And so in this way, I feel like we have the ability to try on many different hats just for a season, just to know what that hat felt like as it sat on my head and how it looked and how it made me feel. And, and then, from there we can share what we have learned. And, so I just wanted to share that that's just why we phrased it in this way of like, sort of 2 6-2s chatting about this kind of crazy, chaotic living in. And I just think that it's important to really like keep speaking and to keep communicating and to keep sharing ideas because frankly, the last many years of censorship, I don't really believe that that's coming to an end. Like, I just think maybe it's changing a little bit,
Yeah. It's just
but
changing hands, but yeah.
because if you really have a truly divergent opinion, it will be censored, even on Elon Musk's platform.
Or at the
But
least just ridiculed, you know?
yeah, and so yeah, totally. And so I think that it's just important to keep sort of like the nuanced conversations flowing. Maybe we can do this again, just
Yes.
considering like,
I would like
that
that. I would like that. I do
yeah.
have to go here in 2 minutes, but I do want to say one thing that is nuanced and is going to be met with resistance.
Uh-oh, just
Maybe not necessarily from you, but
trickle it
from
in at the
people.
end.
Yeah, this can be something that people can chew on because I've had to do it too. And this is why I can say it because I've had to do it for myself too, you know? So it's
Mhm.
again, it's like, uh, when we say like people had to make choices that they didn't necessarily want, right? Say to get the job because they didn't want to lose their job. But then there were people who actually stood in that and said no. Right? We were talking about the military and so they're reinstated. And that the universe rewards courage. So here's what I'm going to say to that. And there's no shame at all because I've done it too. I've done made it's not necessarily what we want, it's what do we want more, right?
Yes.
So when people, and again, there's no shame, there's no judgment at all. It's just the reality of it that I've had to come to myself as well too. When people make decisions based on like, oh, and then say, well, they made me do it because I would have lost my job. We are giving away that's an example of giving away our power. No, when we could say, oh, I chose to do that because I was afraid that, let's see, ultimately I could put food on the table for my kids,
Exactly. And
right?
that's so real too. Like
It is
that is
real.
real.
Absolutely, it's real. But I think that the more we can come, this is what I'm saying, this is this growth journey, right? When we come to terms with owning our choices, right? Because then we can say, then it's an empowered choice versus a choice of whenever we say, well, I had to do it, or I was made to do it, or like I didn't want to do that, but I had to do it anyway. It's actually we're lying to ourselves. We're not telling ourselves the whole story, and we're actually
Mhm.
diminishing our own power. That's how I want to phrase it. It's not that there's shame, it's just we're diminishing our own power. And we've all done it. I've been, and I have to catch myself on doing it. It's like, oh my God, what am I making this decision from? What energy am I making this decision from? Which is why knowing what's important to us is so fucking important. And
Mm.
pausing, you know what I mean? Because if I know, like these people who said no, obviously they had something that was more important to them, their conviction was more important to them, and they knew that there was like, if I say no to this, yeah, I'm gonna be fucking scared, but I
Yeah.
know that I'll figure it out, right? There's a level versus like I have to do it because it's like we have to change our positioning in this world, and it's not easy, but it's
Yeah.
doable. It's just that we have to know what we're doing first. This is the unconscious, right? These are the things that we don't see, like you were saying with the iceberg. We don't see why
Yeah.
we're even doing these things because they're just looping mechanisms happening, and we can't even see it until somebody points it out to us.
And I think that both of our human design authorities indicate that we are to take a second and to wait on our decisions,
Mhm.
which maybe is like a blessing because then we can like peek under the hidden aspect of the iceberg and see, well, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel that way? And get curious and ask ourselves these questions. And,
Absolutely.
so
Because I feel like, too, it's like I feel like if whatever decision we're making, if it's done intentionally and consciously from a foundation of like what's important to me and what do I want, I don't
mm,
know if there's a wrong choice in that.
right.
Does it make sense? Like I believe that there is like it's like oh we were doing oh it was conscious even if it doesn't agree with somebody else's, if it doesn't align with somebody else's,
That's okay.
that's okay, right?
Yeah.
But so I feel like this is the tide that we have to turn in this world moving forward. We'll just maybe end on this is like how can we help people make truly conscious decisions and really get real with themselves because that's the fucking journey. That's the road less traveled though. I mean, honestly, it's fucking
Yeah.
hard to get real with ourselves. Like it's hard to admit. I had to face my 30-year pattern yesterday that I mean, and
Mhm.
I had to like shit, I've been doing this for fucking 30 years and I didn't see it.
Biblically, it can be thought of that road less traveled that you're talking about. Like, that's the narrow gate,
Absolutely 100%.
right? So,
100%.
well, I love
So
you, and I hope that you have an amazing day
you too.
and that you have a good series of calls. Okay.
Thank you. We'll talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.